our dearest friend from Uzbekistan, the head of Teachers Association there, the educator and teacher trainers, active STEP member, and no, I'm sorry, not STEP, but TESOL member, and at the same time, community builder, will present his amazing book. And he kindly agreed to share his evening with us and speak about the books. And you also can feel free to ask any questions you have about it. And I'm sure it will be interesting.
Ms. Kubra, I would
Yes.
like to say some words about our dear guest. Mr. Firuz Ekberov is a native of Uzbekistan who earned his Bachelor of Arts in English Philology from the Samarkand State Institute of Foreign Languages. He furthered his studies by winning a state-funded scholarship to pursue a 2-year master's course at the University of Pune, India. He has been the winner of multiple awards, both domestically and internationally. And one of his most remarkable achievements was in China, where he was awarded the Best TESOL Teacher Award of the year 2014. And he was recently awarded the Golden Globe Education Award 2023 for Global Educator of the Year by Educatio World India. Mr. Firuz Ekberov is a philanthropist by nature, so he has committed himself to volunteering and public engagement both at home and abroad, both physical and virtually. He has become an international ESL, EFL instructor due to his extensive teaching abroad and his international teacher qualifications. He is one of the few English teachers from Uzbekistan with an international C2 level from the UK. Mr. Firuz Ekberov has been a presenter at numerous prestigious global conferences like TESOL Arabia in Dubai, English Without Borders National Conference in Tajikistan, Africa ELTA APAC ELT Convention 2023 Spain, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Wutik CELT 2022 at Webster University in Tashkent. Force ICEL at Westminster International University in Tashkent, and AIDS European Knowledge and Development Istanbul, and others. Since 2020, he has firmly established his online presence across 20 plus international platforms as a successful international speaker. And he's the founder of the newly established ETA, Uzbekistan English Teachers Association. There are several projects to his name within ETA Uzbekistan, such as the TED Master Virtual Speaking Club, a 20-minute talk with the founder, a Zoom workshop for ESL teachers, and others. On May 19, 2023, Mr. Firuz Ekberov was awarded a state prize and medal for his immense contribution to English language teaching in his country, Uzbekistan. And currently, he is teaching a reputable Australian English course, VCE, for high school students in China. And he recently authored a book for English teachers titled The Art of Teaching, Let Your Teaching Voice Be Heard. Yes. And the stage is yours, Mr. Ekberov.
Good evening, dear Azerbaijan and everyone watching us tonight from across the globe. What a lovely introduction of mine. Thank you very much, dear Ms. Shalala Mamadli and Ms. Kubra Salmanova. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Feruz Akbarov, and without further ado, I'd like to jump in straight into the presentation of my recently published book in the United States of America, which is now live on Amazon. It's called The Art of Teaching. Let Your Teaching Voice Be Heard. Upon the end of my presentation, I hope I'll have my fingers crossed. At least some of you will be able to go out and let your teaching voice be heard to the international teaching community, because I'm sure you must have your own teaching adventures and journey that is worth being heard all over the world. And I'm just one of you. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I delve into the presentation of my book, I want to pause briefly and pose a million-dollar question to everyone who has joined us, who is in the house. And my question is the following. What makes a great teacher in today's changing world? And I'd like to hear your comments or insights either live in the session or in the Zoom chat box. I can keep an eye in both of those. If you are brave enough, you can just unmute and go live and say a few words to answer my question. I'll repeat my question. What makes a great teacher in today's changing world? That's how I started my book. At the very top in the blurb, there's a question. What makes a great teacher in today's changing world? So I'd like to hear your insights first. Okay, there are some answers. Some responses keep coming in the chat box. Collaboration, attitude, open-mindedness, says Ms. Kubra Salmanova. Tahira says passion, desire. Arzu says lifelong learning. iPhone says I teach adults. I hope this will be helpful to make my lessons more interesting. Yes, for sure. Enthusiasm, nonstop learning. Yeah.
Hello,
So
can I
love
say
and
something?
sure, go ahead.
I think what makes today's teachers the best nowadays is their creativity.
Absolutely.
So the more creative you are, the more interesting and better lessons you will provide. Thank you.
Excellent. You're welcome. Anybody else? Loving teaching research says Aidan Akbarli. Okay, thank you very much for your insights. It's part of my style of presentation that I like maximum engagement with the audience. This is the same way I teach the lessons. And in my book, you'll learn plenty of practical strategies to actually maximize engagement in your lessons. So, in short, this book of mine answers that very question I asked you at the onset. What makes a great teacher in today's changing world? And broadly speaking, this book will take you, the readers, on a journey through the heart and soul of modern education, blending powerful personal stories with practical insights. This book explores how passion, purpose, and pedagogy intersect to create real world impact. From engaging students and embracing diversity to fostering innovation and lifelong learning, the art of teaching is both an inspiration and also a guidebook for all educators across the globe. Whether you're teaching in a bustling city like Baku, London, Paris, New York, or somewhere in a quiet village on the outskirts of your country, doesn't matter. This book reignites your love for the classroom. Folks, to this book, I brought not just years of experience across the classrooms in Poland, China, Uzbekistan, and beyond, but I try to bring a rare authenticity, a kind that comes from not theory alone, but from lived moments, hard-won insights, and a deep belief in the transformative power of education. What truly makes this book stand out is its conversational tone as well as human-centered approach. I'm sure, and I bet my bottom dollar that you would, agree with me on that point that most of us, we tend to read, on the sideline of our full-time job, we tend to read some specific books related to our field of interest, like English teaching, vocabulary, grammar, and etc., right? Lots of tons of activities, and you just name it. But, most of the times we find the language of those books really complex to comprehend, not easy to follow, because the book might be theory heavy. You know what I mean? And bearing all those intricacies and nuances, I try to, simplify the language of this book. It's, super easy to follow, and you can just get tons of insights, in one reading. You don't have to read twice, thrice to understand what the author is trying to say. So, in this book, I try to invite you fellow readers into my personal reflections, my triumphs, and even failures, because this book reflects on my teaching journey, all the way from the beginning, from the onset up until now. So it's like 16 plus years of teaching experiences in all those mentioned countries. Vivid stories, candid admissions, hard-earned wisdom. So through all of those, I try to show the readers, to you, the teaching is not just a merely delivery of content, which some of you might assume. It's actually creating connection, building relationship to your students, to the culture that you are in touch with. For example, I was in China, so involuntarily I had to embrace the local culture. I had to familiarize myself with the local culture, because the local culture is the gap between me and my Chinese students. Without understanding their culture, without respecting their culture, we can't imagine of any sort of teaching and learning going on in the classroom. So in this book, you will learn some practical strategies drawn from my extensive teaching experiences from all those countries, and also some profound truths. Let me mention some of those truths. Number one, I tried to highlight and explain to a wider teaching community that, engagement in the classroom is not an entertainment, as many of you might be, falsely under the impression of this misleading concept. Because imagine you're having tons of fun and laughter and just, a lot of action going on in the class. It's like a beehive of activities. It's hyperactive. Just on the sideline, look at a class and answer my question. Do you really think there's some sort of engagement going on in the class? Or is it just a, hodgepodge of activities, some random activities that are leading to nowhere? So that's also another $1 million question. So I tried to explain to the fellow English teachers that only when you try to carefully craft a lesson or activity which closely resonates with your students' lives, wishes, desires, needs, and even problems, only then some sort of engagement will be happening between you and your students in that particular class. Because every class for your students should be a kind of a spotlight, an arena where they can see themselves in the reflective mirror that you provide, not just having some time pass activities which are good for nothing. So, cut to the chase. I'm trying to say engagement in your classes is not about entertainment. So please do not confuse those two uh, different aspects of the classroom. And another truth that I try to elaborate on is technology is a tool, but humanity is the medium. Since the emergence of various high tech, and especially the artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Grok, and there are just a bunch of other versions of artificial intelligence, there was a panic among the wider English teaching community that there might be sudden overtaking of those machines, artificial intelligence, and robots, and they would just replace us totally in the class. Well, they start panicking, and this is never going to happen for a number of reasons, because those machines lack emotion. Although they could be artificially trained to be smart, but they actually lack, a deep emotional, personal emotion. And we teachers are, we human beings are social beings, and we connect with our students on that social level. We can, listen to their problems. We can listen to, we can see how they're making a progress. And this takes a human teacher. And a robot tutor can never replace us, in that respect and some others. Yeah, I tried to, try to touch upon some widely misleading, some stereotypes in the ELT community that teaching, it's a kind of a novel work, a profession that takes a human heart in the first place. It doesn't matter if you come from Azerbaijan or if you come from Uzbekistan, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, some other countries in Asia. It doesn't matter. In the first place, the foundational need for being a teacher is having a human heart, because only then you can put yourself into a student's shoes, and only then you would start creating a lesson that resonates fully with your students, their wishes, needs, problems, and all their level. So a few words about what's in these pages. This book is comprised of 75 pages. It's not that much, actually. And it's divided into two parts. Part one has 25 chapters, and each chapter is beautifully titled. I can read some of those. Like the first chapter is Where the Journey Begins. And my journey begins in Poland. And this is a picture of us with my Polish students in Krakow, a beautiful city of Krakow. And then the next one is teaching beyond the textbook. I tried to touch upon this theme several times throughout the book, that the teachers, the modern teachers, should go beyond the textbook and should never be bound by the textbook alone, because we're living in the information age, where your students can easily access tons of interesting information, through their smartphone. And if you just stick to that boring manual, that can be really tedious. So the next one is When the Classroom Spoke a Different Language. It's exactly for those teachers who are teaching abroad, to those students who are learning English as a foreign language. Then comes The Classroom as a Mirror, the breakthrough you never see coming. When technology met the chalkboard, language beyond the textbook, the power of feedback. I like this chapter. And in every chapter, I provided some key messages for the teachers. And in this chapter, the key message is feedback must be timely, specific, and empowering. And I say, in the end, authentic feedback is not about judgment. Feedback is not for you as a teacher to judge your students. No way. This is another myth, another widespread myth. Feedback is actually about connection. It's an opportunity for connection between a student and a teacher. It is the invisible thread that weaves together teacher and student, guiding them both toward growth, trust, and transformation. So feedback, in short, is not judgment, it is a connection. And every time you build connection through feedback, and I'm sure if you if you provide feedback in that calculated fashion, your students would love to get more feedback with you, because they know that you want to bond with your students rather than judge them. The next one, my favorite, is the global classroom. The last statement in that chapter is, your classroom, no matter where you teach, is part of the global conversation. Imagine you are teaching somewhere on the outside of Baku, right? Or somewhere in a city which does not exist on a global map. Maybe people don't know about its name, right? But still, if you are teaching English class, you must tell your students that, hey, folks, you are being part of global conversation because you are speaking the global language. See how you can intrigue your students into learning English. The teacher's hard. Remember, I just mentioned the entire chapter is dedicated to teacher's heart. The classroom as a canvas. Students teach us too. This chapter is ironically, tells us that it's not the teachers who teach the students, but students teach the teachers too. And that chapter is all about that. Mistakes are milestones. As a teacher, you need to reward mistakes in your classes because they are a milestone of achievement. They're never a setback. The next one is storytelling as a teaching tool. I use storytelling in my classes, and my students love it. The rituals that matter. Inclusion starts with you. You know, although this book is not that voluminous, it's not that heavy, but I tried to, incorporate some big topics like inclusivity. This is a big topic, especially in our day and age, when there are students with some disability, there are students with some problems, some family issues. I try to, dedicate an entire chapter to enlighten the fellow English teachers about inclusion and how to tackle that. Teaching across cultures, because I taught in Poland, in Kyrgyzstan, in Uzbekistan, in China, in some other countries. Burnout is real and preventable. The lesson that never ends, legacy in the making. I'll just read one statement from this chapter. Every teacher leaves a legacy, not in words or titles, but in changed lives. It doesn't matter. You could be a TESOL legend, but what if you were not able to change your students' lives? You're not a TESOL legend. Maybe you're a TESOL legend in words, but not in being a game changer. So you are a game changer. The courage to innovate, the power of presence, the global educator's mindset, etc. And then part 2 starts with a critical question that is on the lips of everyone. How can AI shape the future of ELT? So the second part of the book is totally dedicated to AI and its role in modern education. I tried to incorporate some of those, my finest ideas and insights into how AI can transform, but not distract or disrupt. And then in the closing part of the book, I provided some recommended readings. It's 2 full pages of those famous and best-selling authors that I highly recommend you to go and read. So in short, this book is kind of a reflection of my 16 plus years of teaching experience across different classrooms, cultures, students, multi-level, etc. You just name it. In short, I tried to let my teaching voice be heard to the greater teaching community. And that's how I named the book, The Art of Teaching. Let your teaching voice be heard. This book is now available on Amazon. I don't know if you're able to access Amazon in Azerbaijan, because I was told some countries, they have some restrictions. And because of that, they can't get the hang of the book. So I'm not sure about how accessible it is in your country. But if you have a chance, I strongly recommend you to snatch a copy of this book, because I set the minimum price on Amazon, just $7. What would you buy for $7 in Azerbaijan? I don't know, maybe not much, but you can get a book with tons of insights. That's all for now, and I think we can slowly proceed to Q&A if there are some questions. I see some raised hands. Maybe they want to say something or ask question. Thank you.
Good evening. So if you allow me, I want to start. First of all, Mr. Feroz Ekbarov, I really appreciate your dedication to write a book. I also have the 16 plus years of experience, but writing a book is not that much easy. Besides those jobs that we are doing, which is really difficult, and writing a book besides that is like too much of a burden. I really appreciate it. My question is about inclusiveness. So you actually mentioned that you have already written about it in your book. And my question is there any paradigm, any frame or any, regulation in the country that you're living in terms of inclusiveness? Because in Azerbaijan, we have actually the rule, we actually try to get those students to be the part of the classroom, but in practice, actually, we cannot see that one teacher can regulate all the classroom besides those inclusive students. So that is too hard for a teacher to be responsible for all the students besides those one. So I really need to know that if there are any regulation in the Uzbekistan that to make the teacher to get aware of this risk of being alone regulating all the students altogether. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for your participation, for raising such a critical question. I think your question has been partly answered in the chapter which I already mentioned. That inclusion starts with you. I try uh, to name each chapter in a logical, in a meaningful way, because you can't just give a title. The title should be kind of epitome, should be kind of summary, should be kind of the essence of what this entire chapter wants to say. So in that regard, in that respect, inclusion starts with you actually makes a reference to the fact that you as a teacher, have to be a kind of an inclusive teacher. You need to be kind of an all-embracing teacher. You need to be that person who's good at making a dialogue with the students. Doesn't matter if it takes one-on-one in a mini group or class as a whole. There are various forms you can engage, you can interact, and you can communicate with your students. So it depends a lot on your soft skills. And this is one of the top 10 skills that the recruiters, the employers are seeking actively. No matter which field you are in, they want you to have impressive soft skills. And why not the modern English teacher? We are after all, we are communicators. We are kind of a presenter, because every lesson we present a class to our students. So it depends on how good you are in terms of soft skills. If you're good at soft skills, if you are personally, by nature, you are inclusive person. Because I know there are some people who struggle, who suffer from certain biases, certain ideologies, certain ways of thinking, certain policies. So they kind of interfere for them not to be able to fully include everything and everyone. So, inclusivity in the first place depends on who you are. If you are, if you can embrace people and culture and ideology and policy with no strings attached, then I think that's where the inclusivity starts. For example, personally, I had a colleague of mine in China who had a problem talking to those passive students. He would always just write them off. He would just disregard them. And, every now and then we used to sit down for a cup of coffee at Starbucks with him in China. And I used to raise some critical question, from our classes. And I asked the same question, like, why would you disregard those passive students? Why not you pay more attention? He would say, no, they're just born that way. There's nothing I can do. And if the teacher thinks that way, who's going to make a difference in that poor student's life? So I think it depends on the teacher's mindset. It depends on the teacher's heart. It depends on how inclusive the teacher is. And only then we can start talking about inclusivity. And as for the regulation and stuff that you talked about Uzbekistan, I don't think there are certain regulations or like a paradigm or framework when it comes to regulating these different students with needs, special needs, with different backgrounds. Well, as per the Constitution of Uzbekistan, as much as I know, this is a country of over 130 ethnic groups. So you can just imagine how colorful and multi-ethnic and diverse, culturally diverse the classrooms can be. There are Tatars, Uzbek, Russian, even Azerbaijanis. Do you know that? We have even Azerbaijanis sitting in the Uzbekistan classrooms. So the Uzbekistan constitution stipulates that no matter who you are, which gender, which background you are, you're entitled to get an education. So that's what they say. But I don't think there are even more detailed argumentation when it comes to the way they should be taught. The Constitution just says you're welcome to receive an education, free education, regardless of who you are. That's
Right.
the end. That's the extent of Constitution. That's the
Yeah,
extent of regulation.
Mr. Ferris, I don't want to take your time that much, but that is the same that in Azerbaijan. We also have some regulations that say in the constitution in terms of the inclusiveness, which means that to include all the students who are mentally stable, but they're lazy bones, their mentality is different. But my question is about only the disabilities, the ones with disabilities, because our infrastructure doesn't answer it, and our classrooms doesn't answer it, and the being only one teacher in the classroom doesn't answer. So it means that we need extra teachers to send to houses to educate those people. Also, if they come to the classroom, it also entails some problems like differentiation in the classroom. Firstly, if we differentiate something for mentally stable students according to their levels, that will make us another burden to make some differentiation in terms of visually disabled students, or the other handicaps. So that is the question, that if there is any regulation in terms of including those students. For example, I can give an example from America. And whenever I was there, they always try to bring such kind of students to the classroom because they want them to be a part of society in a real sense. And all the students around them, they also benefit because they know that how to regulate that student. So let's give an example from the cooking classroom. If they are mentally stable students, if they don't have any problem with your brain, they say, okay, Jack, you cannot do this job, that's better, you can do this one. So that they regulate them, and also they can do something inside the classroom, so everyone include. And that is the question. I cannot see such kind of regulation in my country personally. So as we are post-Soviet Union, parts, both Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan, my question was really about it, if there is any steps in that direction
Yes,
in Uzbekistan.
now I see what you're trying to say. I think
Yeah.
there are some schools in my country that have inclusivity in a way that you try to paint a picture of, like trying to include, literally physically try to include those physically disabled students and kids into a general class and be happily part of that class. I think we do have those classes. And partly you brought up an example, a fascinating example from the American educational context, that by incorporating those physically disabled students into able-bodied students classes, actually we can teach our students some nuggets of wisdom, of caring for the people of all backgrounds, of all abilities and disabilities. We don't have to, have a kind of a course to teach our students to be mindful and caring for people of all background and abilities, but we can actually have them in practice. We can actually incorporate those all students into one class, and from the sideline we can actually observe how the students are getting on well, how they're trying to care for one another. This actually builds a kind of interpersonal skills between people of all walks of life. And when these generation, grows up and becomes mature enough, becomes, as citizens, and I think they will be, emulating the very same thing that they were brought up. So they would just, go back to the schools and they would set up rules to ensure that the entire education system is inclusive, where the disabled would sit next to the able-bodied student, and the able-bodied student, seeing that his fellow deskmate is actually disabled, he would start caring for him. And there would be some times when I could just fabricate a little bit of example at this juncture. Let's say one is Nick and the other is Mike, right? Mike is disabled and Nick is able-bodied. So Nick would say, Mike, hey, now this is lunchtime. Do you want me to grab something for you? This is the beginning of caring for his fellow deskmate. And over years, over time, this will translate, this will blossom and flourish into a full kind of friendship. And this will teach them a lesson that the best takeaway that we learn from this school is not math, algebra, physics, chemistry. We learn how to be a human being. Isn't it a great lesson for the students? I think that's what you were trying to say through inclusivity. Like I said, this is one of the biggest and most critical themes in TESOL conferences and etc. Although my book is not that voluminous, it's not that heavy, just 75 pages. But I tried to dedicate a kind of a brief chapter, and I titled it saying the inclusion that starts with you. We teachers are role models. What we do will be just emulated, will be just copied by our students. So instead of being a preacher, we need to be actually a doer. So there's a difference between a preacher and a doer. So I think teachers can, reflect upon the teaching experiences, whether at some point they have been a preacher or a doer.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Mr. Ekbarov. We have some interesting questions in the chat. For example, one of the
Absolutely.
teachers asked, what advice, what tips could you give, and maybe from your own book, to
Sure.
help teachers deal with challenges such as lack of motivation and discipline?
Excellent question. Motivation, engagement, creativity, these are those areas that I'm, totally into. So, and I try to incorporate those, my favorite themes into my recently published book. So when it comes to lack of motivation or lack of engagement in the class, I think that goes back on how the teachers design the lesson. So it depends on what are you trying to do. Imagine you're about to teach a lesson tomorrow on world wonders, okay? And if you go to my YouTube page with the same name, Feruz Akbarov, by the way, if you go to the short section, I have a video from Taj Mahal, and I shot that video that about like a 1 minute or maybe 40-second vlog from Taj Mahal on the spot. And the reason I, did that vlog is I had to teach a lesson exactly on world wonders. And instead of talking about world wonders, I showed them the real world wonder where the teacher was talking from the place on site. And then at the end of the video, every time I try to pose a question to my students, and this is a great experience. I just attempted it in China, where I used to record a kind of a 20-second video on my mobile phone. I call it a vlog, and I used to incorporate it into my PPT. So instead of giving the instruction face-to-face, physically, I used to play the PPT, play that 20-second vlog. The students would see me in a digital version, a digital format. giving them instruction, and I would play it twice. And then, the digital one hands over the lesson to the real one. So in my classes, the students would see two teachers. One is digital, one is real. And I try to use the combination every time in my classes to just spice up the lesson, to make it more animated. And this is one easy way. All you need is just one mobile, phone, the smartphone, and nothing much. 20-second video is not much. And, you can tell me, can say that, look, I'm camera shy. I'm quite sensitive when it comes to vlogging. So what would you suggest me in that case? The point is, you are not going to share those vlogs publicly on social media. If you are camera shy, for example, I'm not camera shy. I know there are some teachers who are extremely, painfully shy or sensitive to the cameras. You are doing this for the benefit of your students, for improving the quality of your lessons. And those videos will be only shared in your classes exclusively for your students only. And can you tell me that you're still shy? If you're still shy, then what are you doing in the class? That's just one way of increasing motivation. You have to present your lesson in an unusual, unpredictable way. If your lesson is like, a very predictable, a very monotonous, a kind of a boring structure that your students can foretell in advance. I know the same teacher tomorrow is going to teach us the same way by having the same activity, by asking the same question. Your class has become, just a boring place. I'm sorry. As a
Yes.
teacher, you need to, present something fresh, something unheard of, something that, opens your students' eyes wide open. I would, always try to put myself into my students' shoes and try to think from students' perspective. Look, first, when I create a lesson, then I sit back and look at it from students' perspective. Oh, would I be interested in that lesson? And only then I would start, finding out the faulty spots, like the blind spots. But we need to, from time to time, put ourselves into our students' shoes and see the lesson from their eyes. We always, we kind of used to be a kind of I'm sorry to say so, kind of a dictator in the classroom. The teachers, especially I don't know, in the post-Soviet countries, maybe they have this dictatorship in the classroom. But I think we need to get rid of the kind of mentality. The modern teaching is all about listening to your students' wishes and needs and problems. If you can, you will be their best teacher. You'll be their favorite teacher. If you can't, I'm sorry. It's better you change your job.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Ekberov. And we have one interesting comment here on
Sure.
positive feedback. One of the teachers shared this comment that if you often give positive feedback, your students might think that they are good enough in their lessons and they can, be overconfident, or I don't know, like they will start pay less attention to their lessons. Is it the
I
case?
think I got what you're trying to say, where you're leading, because that's exactly what I tried to talk about in a chapter on page 18, the power of feedback. Look what I said. One of the greatest gifts we can give a learner is authentic feedback. What is authentic feedback? I'm not talking about good job, try harder next time. I'm talking about feedback that fuels growth. The kind that respects a learner's effort and offers a way forward. So, positive feedback is just part of rewarding your students' effort. But if you just say, Good job. Great. Excellent. Marvelous. Brilliant. You are the fantastic kid, in the world and etc. Maybe you're not truly, genuinely rewarding your student's effort. You have to ask yourself, am I rewarding his effort or am I just praising, nothing with empty talk, with empty words? I think it's the latter. So we need to ensure that we are trying to reward the effort, and we need to be able to see that effort put into their progress. I think on the teacher's part, we need to stay alert to react, to be responsive to how much our students are making progress. And only then giving authentic feedback rather than the feedback which means nothing. Like a great job would mean nothing, truly. A great job for what? Why? If someone gives me a kind of a random comment, great job, my reaction would be, why? I think the students, this question would cross the minds of our students. Why? Why great job? I haven't done anything great.
Yes.
So I think we need to be really, careful about the word selection, the choice of words. Which words are we picking out? Are we just randomly picking out some words that we try to use as an adjective to impress our students that, hey, I know so many adjectives. I'm trying to use all of them for you. Great, awesome, fantastic, marvelous, brilliant, etc. The teacher is trying to show off his linguistic prowess. How many adjectives does the teacher know? But in reality, there's no feedback. There's no feedback by just giving a random adjectives. The feedback should be genuine, authentic. The teacher should be able to clearly explain. If I say, okay, great job, there's nothing bad about great job. But then I should be, when we sit down with a student, with that particular student, I should be able to pinpoint and say, okay, you did a great job because of this, because of that. I should be able to at least point to one thing that tells that that was a great job. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Ekberov. And one more question from our teachers. Are there any classroom activities in the book?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Examples of, yeah.
Yes, they are. Yes, there are. They are. For example, there is a chapter. There's a chapter when I try to, paint a picture in a classroom. Yeah, the courage to innovate. There's a chapter, the courage to innovate. Innovation is not just about, incorporating some high tech, some smart technology, but it's also being, resourceful. I hope you know what resourceful is. Resourceful is like being able to come up with sudden solution to a kind of an unexpected problem. And that problem crops somewhere down the lane in your classes. I'm sure, there might be some power cut. And imagine your entire lesson was built on PPT and some fantastic videos from YouTube. And because of the power cut, how are you going to teach the class? You should be resourceful. You should have a backup plan. And because of that, I tried to include in that chapter some activities. And my activities are, mostly how to be resourceful, how to be creative, how to present the same lesson in an unconventional way, in a non-traditional way. I tried to answer those long-standing questions in ELT rather than providing some prescriptive formulas or rigid activities that have been, commonplace all over the world. Because you can just go online, you can just, Google, and you can find out so many different activities which are readily available, at no cost. But in my book, what I tried to do is I tried to paint a picture and elaborate and explain to teachers that no matter what kind of activity you are having in the class, always try to tweak. Try to add a personal touch. Try to make a small adjustment. Try to, cater it to your lesson so that it aligns with your lesson goals. And every class, you make those small tweaks and small adjustments, and your students would be intrigued. Your students don't, expect you to go the extra mile and come back next class with totally different lesson plan. I don't think you have enough time, energy. This is mostly impractical to come up with a upright different class strategy. No, from lesson to lesson, what you can do as a creative teacher, just a small tweak. And it takes, a lot of creativity to add that tweak to your lessons. So in short, I haven't provided some specific activities that you can, readily employ into your lessons, but I try to explain the rationale behind the successful use of activities in the classroom dynamics and how to be, how to be engaging with your students. I try to paint a bigger picture of that because in most of those activities books, they provide activities. They say, use this activity, use that activity. Okay, but what is the goal? What is the goal of using A activity, B activity, C activity? There must be some goal, and they should link into a bigger lesson, goals. So my answer is I haven't provided some specific activities, but I provided some names of those specific activities from my classes like Flipgrid activities that uses the Flipgrid app. Tourism campaign, which my Chinese students, carried out in their local city. There are some unheard of activities that you can come across. But truly, this book is not about activities. This book is about the art of teaching, how to teach as an artist. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Akbarov. And one of our teachers asks about classroom management. Please tell us
Yes.
about classroom management.
Absolutely. This book, like I said, try to compile those long-standing issues in teaching business and teaching industry and classroom management. This was one of my Achilles heels. This was one of my weaknesses at the onset of my teaching journey. But over the years, when I was confronted by various diverse classes and students of different culture, I tried to learn the nuances, the subtleties of classroom management. The teacher can be described in many different ways. Earlier, I was saying the teacher is a presenter, a teacher is a communicator, a teacher is a leader, a teacher is etc. But I can also tell you the teacher is a manager. Just imagine a company, imagine an organization, imagine a football team, a sports team. They have a manager, right? And why not? The teacher is a manager too, because you have a group to deal with, to communicate with. And this communication is back and forth. This communication is ongoing. This is, perhaps never ending. It can go beyond their graduation. Sometimes you are well connected with those of your students who graduated many years ago, right? So there's still some kind of rapport, some kind of good relationship between you and your students. So, the teacher is a manager. And how to be a good manager? I think those listeners of today's session, at the end of the session or in your free time, you can just, if you access artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, you can ask a simple question: how to be a good manager? I'm sure ChatGPT would generate answers instantly, like top 10. You can just, generate a prompt. ChatGPT, come up with 10 top 10 qualities required for being a good manager. So having good soft skills, being patient, being understanding, being etc., etc., right? So these are the qualities of a good teacher, actually. And if you have those managerial qualities, you don't have a problem with classroom management, because classroom management is all about being a good manager and how to manage the group, how to manage the class. So when you try to see the parallels between what's going on in your class and what's going on in the real world, and draw a line, draw a parallel, try to connect the real world with your class, only then you will be able to understand fascinating truths about what works best for your students. You know, if there were another presenter, maybe they would just go back to any random book. They would just cite some references or quotes from some ELT professor saying the classroom management, you need to have this activity, you need to have that activity, etc., etc. I don't think that's a good response, and I don't think that's a real world response, because a classroom management is all about being a good manager. And how to become a good manager? I think you need to have some certain skill set in order to be a good manager. And only then, you can forget about classroom management, because you know how to manage your students. And the classroom management is not just about managing, 20 students per class, but you can also be a good manager. You can, climb the ladder of managerial positions. You can become, I don't know, like associate director, or you can become a deputy director. You can become a director of that school. You can become, I don't know, a minister of education in your country, just because you have, a strong managerial skills. So you shouldn't be thinking too much about classroom management. Think bigger, act locally, right? So I think after all, you need to ask yourself, what kind of qualities do I need to be a good manager? And what kind of qualities do I lack? And once you know what kind of qualities you lack, then you start working on those qualities. I think that's my answer. Is Miss Shalala here?
Yeah, Miss Shalala is here. Probably she's not here.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And can we have any link or any information where can we get your book? Is it available?
It is available on Amazon. Only
Only on
Amazon.
Amazon. Only Amazon, yeah?
Only Amazon, right? In paperback. Paperback. So if you go to Kindle, they have the digital books, but this book is not available in digital format. It's only available in paperback. So maybe I wanted, to instill the love for reading the paperback in all those readers. They're going back in time and trying to, make people fall in love with paper books again.
Yes.
Actually, nothing can substitute paper books. It's genuine
Yeah, I
pleasure.
know it can be hard and challenging for some of you to access this book from
Yeah,
Azerbaijan.
but
But if you have friends or acquaintances in the USA, maybe you can, ask them to get you a copy.
I actually purchased some books from Amazon, and they are delivered is no problem anytime. So if teachers are interested, I'm sure they are.
You can
They
just get one copy for STEP Azerbaijan community, just one copy.
Yeah, good
this
And then
idea.
happily share.
This is good, very good. You said $7 or
Yes, just
yes.
$7. It's
Yeah, this is
nothing.
quite affordable. Yes, of course.
It's dirt cheap.
Thank you
Because
so
because
much.
the aim of this book is not, earning any incentive. And to be frank, I haven't earned any cent from this book. Although this book has been sold globally, and I haven't earned anything from Amazon because I set the lowest minimum price for this book. Had I, sat above $20, $30, I could have earned some money by now. This book was released on May 13th, like 4 months ago. But till now, it was sold in many different copies, but I haven't earned anything because my aim was not earning anything. My aim was making it as accessible as possible to everyone in the world. And I want this book to reach to the remotest corners and those cities and villages whose name you can't find on the global map. And just read those insights and change as a teacher, as a human being, etc. So that was my aim. And that's why this book is the cheapest on Amazon.
Yes, as our teachers right now write in the chat, thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. Good evening. Good night.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing your experience, your insights. It was very interesting and very inspiring for all of us.
Yes. Thank you so much. My pleasure. Hope to see you again.
Yes, sure. So, see you.
Take care.
Bye.
See you again. Bye.